Hey, Steven, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast. We're really excited to talk to you about your new book, Project Griddle. Thank you for sending the copies. Me and Ben have been talking about it all day. And yeah, just thank you so much for coming back on to share more about your book.
Well, my pleasure. It's you write these things, and when people are interested in them, it makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah, yeah, no, we were really digging into a lot of the aspects that you provided in the book. So a couple questions that we have for you. Well, one would be, what inspired you to write Project Griddle, and kind of how does it differ from some of the other books that you've written?
Well, as you know, I really made my mark through barbecuing and grilling, and I've written many, many books about barbecuing and grilling. The inspiration for this book actually was a steak. It was one of those hyper well marbled A5 Wagyu steaks from Japan. And when you look at those, they look like white lace laid over a red tablecloth. They're
Right.
so probably at least 50% fat. Well, if you tried to grill a steak like that, you just set it on fire with all the dripping fat. So I took my cue from the way Japanese steak masters cook A5 Wagyu in Japan, and that is they do it on a hot griddle. That way the fat, doesn't drip on the coals. So I cooked this A5 Wagyu on a hot griddle. It came out fantastic. It was
Mm.
crusty on the outside. It was meltingly tender, juicy, succulent, everything you want a steak to be. So the light bulb went off. Huh, what else can you do on a griddle? Well, the next thing I did was shrimp, right? Because shrimp, they can be a pain in the butt to grill. They tend to
Sure.
dry
Yeah.
out. Uh, so I put a griddle on my kettle grill and charcoal over a charcoal fire, and put
Hmm.
some wood chunks on the coals to generate smoke. And then I took shrimp and padron peppers, like the dish you see on the cover of the book,
Yep.
and I grilled, smoked the shrimp, and they were fantastic. Well, at that point, I said, you know what? I think there's a book here. And it didn't hurt that about the time I was writing the book, both Weber and Traeger came out with full-size stand-up outdoor griddles. And that said to me, you know what, this is going to be the hottest trend in outdoor cooking. So,
Yeah.
influence of shrimp, steak, and stand-up griddles, that's what led me to write the book.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we definitely see the trend continuing on this summer.
Yeah, we've talked about that quite a bit too on the podcast, like just the trends and kind of the change and stuff. And so another question for you is, what are you using the most? Are you using the stand-up griddles, or are you kind of doing like that original one that you talked about, where you're taking like that accessory and you're just popping it right on kind of your charcoal grill and cooking it that way?
I'm using both. And I'll give you an example. I mean, last night we actually happened to have an extra A5 Wagyu steak that was left over from a shoot with CBS. And so that one I griddled on my grill. I had, one section with the griddle, one section with the grill, because we were also doing some grilled garlic bread, Spanish style garlic bread with garlic
Mm.
and smoked paprika. So that part was on the grill. And then at the same time, I had my Weber griddle fired up, and we made what I call griddle potato chips, where you slice a potato really thin,
Yeah.
extra virgin olive oil on the griddle, and it's about 5 to 8 minutes per side, work over moderate heat. So that is very much an example of how the Reichlens are cooking these days. So it's
Nice,
half on the griddle, half on the grill, and all at the same time.
nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. We really appreciate you sharing that because I know a lot of people will be interested in doing the same in their backyards. So for some of those maybe backyard grillers that are just getting started with a griddle or a flat top, what are some of kind of your must-have tools or recommendations that you have?
Well, let's see. Most important tool, or one of them, is this thing, okay? And this is the scraper for scraping off the griddle. And it's very important, just like with grilling, you want to keep a clean grill, you want to work on a clean griddle. Another really important tool is your offset spatula. And you notice this one has holes in it, so it prevents the steam built up. Because if you're trying to get crisp, last thing you want to do is a solid griddle that will just steam the food on the bottom.
Mm.
Another really useful tool is this thing. It's called a griddle dome. And if you're cooking, let's say, a thicker piece of chicken, like maybe chicken thighs or even a half chicken, you could do. You put this on top, And what that does is it captures the heat. So you start griddling from both the bottom and the top. And you'll notice that this griddle dome has 3 little holes in it right here. So again,
Mm.
that's to release the steam. Tool number 4 is not really a tool, it's a piece of parchment paper. And very often when I'm cooking a thick sandwich, I'll divide and conquer, right? Like if I'm making a muffaletta or cubano, half the ingredients with the ham or the cold cut on the bottom. This goes on the griddle, and then the other half on the griddle. And once the cold cuts are crispy, the ham is crisp, I put everything together. The final tool, which is not a tool, but it's super essential, is a squirt bottle with oil for oiling your griddle. And I'm using extra virgin olive oil here because that not only lubricates your griddle, but it gives you extra flavor.
Mm. Yeah, those are some great tools and some great tips for first time, grillers, barbecuers, just getting used to a griddle, kind of like myself as well. So that's great.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were just jumping in, could you kind of talk to our listeners and stuff who might after this obviously be buying a griddle? Where would you start? What's kind of if you just pull out your griddle and you're like, this is the first thing I'm going to cook on it. What would your go-to be?
All right. So the first thing you got to do when you get your griddle home and build it, you got to clean it, right? Because it comes with factory grease, which is usually an edible grease, but nonetheless sort of gross. So I use a very thick steel wool and soap, and I clean it, or a brush. I clean it very thoroughly. That's the only time you're going to use soap on a griddle, by the way. Next
Mm.
thing you have to do is you season it. And the way you season it is you paint it with oil. You run it on medium high until that oil turns black and let it cool completely, scrape it off, and you do that 3 to 4 times until the surface is black and coated with a non-stick surface. It's a process called polymerization, by
Mhm.
the way. Okay, first thing, so once your griddle is seasoned, and this, you can all do this in an afternoon. First thing I cook on it, I make breakfast on it, and I would start either with bacon or with sausage.
Mm.
And the reason I would do that is that's extra fat, extra seasoning for your griddle. So if you're coming over to my house for breakfast, I do the bacon, I'd put it off to the side because I set up my griddle just like a grill, 3 or 4 zones, one hot, one medium, one low, one off. Move the bacon to the side. And then I might I might do pancakes. I've got a really nice buttermilk pancake in the recipe. Those go off to the side. And then I might make what I call dirty eggs. Now, dirty eggs, that's my version of a fried egg. So I finely chop fresh herbs, rosemary, basil, tarragon, chives, scallion greens, garlic, whatever. I make a little circle of butter on the griddle, put the herbs on top, sprinkle them on top. Then I crack an egg on top of that. So the egg is frying on the herbs, and then I flip it over. And so the herbs are sort of turned brown and crusty. And the fried egg, it's an over easy egg, and it's crusty on top, super herb flavored. It's just, it takes like the ordinary diner fried egg breakfast and just transports it to the sky.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Those are some great tips, especially with the bacon. I think everybody loves a little bit of bacon to
Yeah,
start. So,
can't go wrong
we
with
know,
it.
yeah, and we know a lot of those recipes and those tips are in the book here. So we did ask some of our followers if they had a question for you. So we did get one question from Philip, and he asks, "What's one thing or food that you wouldn't really think about cooking on a griddle that actually cooks really well?"
That is a great question. So there's a Spanish, well, okay. All right. One thing you might not think of griddling is pineapple, right?
Okay.
And I have a recipe in the book. It's called peppered pineapple. So fresh pineapple slices, brushed with butter on both sides, dipped in granulated sugar that's been flavored with freshly ground black pepper.
Mm.
Get little black specks in it. Super hot griddle. You caramelize the sugar on the outside. The pineapple stays still fresh on the inside. You get those little peppery bursts of black pepper, little notch of heat, and that's served with a mezcal flavored whipped cream. Mezcal being
Mm.
the smoky cactus spirit from Mexico. And I think that is something that I guarantee if people make that, it's going to blow the minds of anyone who tastes it. And another beautiful thing about the griddle is, you can cook a whole meal in a griddle, like these new stand-up griddles. Mine's 36 inches. I mean,
Nice.
you can do a whole meal and that'll feed a lot of people.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So we're coming up to the end here. So where can people find the book if they're interested in learning more about griddles and the recipes that you have inside here, Project Griddle?
Okay. Well, my website is barbecuebible.com. You come visit if you haven't been there before, sign up
We've
for
been
my
there.
Up and Smoke newsletter. It's, you get free newsletter twice a week. And by the way, this week's newsletter is for Mother's Day. It's a picture of me and my mom. My mother was the grill master in our family, so I
Nice.
tell the
Okay.
story like that. On social media, it's just Steven Raichlen, StevenRaichlen. And you can find the book, local bookstore, Amazon, my website, hopefully everywhere.
Yeah, yeah, we'll definitely put the links below in the show notes so people can go out and find it. But one last question I think we have is anything else that we didn't talk about that you found very interesting in your research and in your kind of writing of this book that maybe you didn't know or didn't think of before you wrote it?
Sure. Well, two sort of interesting things. I'm a bit of a history buff, so I write about the history of the griddle. And one of the first ever griddle recipes written in the 13th century in England was actually a rhyme poet. It was for cooking fish.
Mm,
Uh, Another interesting fact, I've developed a technique for smoking on a griddle.
okay.
So I have a recipe for barbecued chicken with Alabama white sauce, and it
Hmm.
truly is smoked. And you'll have to buy the book to find out how to do it. You guys have it, but anyway, I was really proud of that. Because I, I always, there's a slight little nibbling guilty conscience that says, well, wait a minute, is Reichland going over to the dark side there with griddles? The short answer is I'm not. I'm still totally into grill. But
Good, good.
it was very exciting for me to write a book that wasn't a grill book because it made me think, in a new way. Like grill books, they're easy to write, but this was more interesting. So,
Yeah, we definitely saw like the inspiration come through because I actually have that chicken recipe you just talked about bookmarked
Yep.
already
okay,
in the book because that's one I definitely want to try out.
cool. Well, shh, don't
Yeah,
don't tell
no,
it on
We
the
won't. Yeah,
podcast. Make them
yeah,
buy the book.
yeah. You
yeah.
have to get the book to try it out.
Mhm.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, Steven, thank you so much, and go out and buy the book, support Steven and all that he does. Sign up for his newsletter as well.
And we'd love to have you on again too. So next book,
Uh,
we're here. We're ready.
All right, tell you, I'm going to hold you to that. My next book
Good.
is actually a memoir when I talk about how a guy with a degree in French literature became the barbecue king. So
Well, we're
look
looking
for that.
forward to
Looking
that.
forward to that. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks,
All right.
man.
Thank
All
you
right,
so much,
thanks, Steven.
Steven.